that that heals on top of any regeneration that's being applied. It's like a second regeneration. If you want a better view of your traits, you can hit H and look at it the normal way, and it'll show what you have set up in PvP. It won't show your PvE World versus World build. That might be an easier way for you to look at this if you want to. So the major trait in Adept, Cantrip Mastery, reduces recharge by 20%. Those 3 cantrips, Mist Form, Armor of Earth, and Lightning Flash, are your main way of staying alive. They're extremely powerful. Staff Ellie has one of the best survivability rates if you know what you're doing because of those 3 cantrips. So reducing their cooldown is the most amazing thing you can possibly do because it'll keep you alive. So that's almost like the most required skill every Staff Ellie should run. Out of everything else, Cantrip Mastery is it, because you want those cooldowns on your cantrips because they help keep you alive. So in the next minor trait in Master, heal nearby allies, not just the allies, when attuning to water. That does a decent amount of healing. Nothing to really necessarily think about there, because if you need to heal someone or yourself, you're probably moving into water anyway. So that's nothing significant, but it's worth noting that it does heal people when you switch to water, in addition to doing that Soothing Mist regen heal on them as well. For the next skill, there's 2 you can pick. Soothing Disruption, 9, is the more common one, and that is cantrips grant you regeneration and vigor. So regeneration and vigor are both good in and of themselves. Anytime you use your your Mist Form, Armor of Earth, Lightning Flash, or your auto-procced Armor of Earth, you will get regeneration and vigor. Regeneration is pretty obvious, heals you, over time, help keep you alive. And vigor doubles the speed of your endurance regeneration so that you can evade more often. So those are both good. Most likely, if you're popping your cantrips, you're in an oh shit situation. So you want that extra healing and the extra endurance regeneration. Another interesting note when we get to the we'll just skip right ahead to it now. The major trait in Grandmaster, Cleansing Water. Remove a condition when granting regeneration to yourself or an ally. So anytime you or an ally gets regeneration, you just removed a condition. So if we go back to Soothing Disruption, you get regen anytime you use a cantrip. So every time you're using a cantrip now, you're going to remove a condition. So say you get immobilized and stunned and you pop Armor of Earth. Well, you just removed your immobilize also. So if you're in a bad situation, which you probably will be if you're using your cantrips, it's good that it's also going to clear a condition in addition to doing regen and vigor. The other interesting thing about Cleansing Water is when you pop into Water Attunement, for a trait down in Arcana, which we'll go over, called Elemental Attunement, you will grant regen to you and your allies. So when you switch to Water Attunement, number of targets 5, and you grant regen to you and up to 4 people. So that just cleared 5 conditions. So if you're running Elemental Attunement down in Arcana, which we'll go over, we're actually gonna skip ahead to that right now, actually. So you can see what I'm talking about. If you look down in the Arcana line, the middle trait, the major trait in Master, number 8, Elemental Attunement. When attuning to an element, you and nearby allies gain a boon. So in Fire, you get Might, which is good for damage, give you and your allies Might stacks. But the most powerful thing with this is the regen, because that regen is going to clear at least one condition off of you, because you're going to apply regeneration to yourself when you switch to Water. But you can remove up to 5 conditions because of that Cleansing Water. So that's extremely powerful, especially because if you're switching back to Water, you either need to stay alive, or you're going back for a regroup, so you want to, clear conditions off you when you're going to go heal up. The other 2 that Elemental Attunement gives you swiftness and air, which I described when you're using Fire Greatsword, or you even have, it's good for keeping your swiftness up while you're using the Fire Greatsword, or you have any bundle in your hands, you can use that to keep getting swiftness. Keep swapping to air, swapping out, swapping back into air. And Earth, if you're going to Earth, the minor trait in Earth gives you toughness, but this also grants you protection when you switch into Earth. So, and you're having a no shit moment, switching to Earth is a pretty good way to go before you pop your cantrips, because you're going to get a toughness increase, you're going to get protection to reduce another third of your damage, and you can pop magnetic aura to reduce ranged attacks. You can pop your 4 skill in Earth on your staff to knock people down if they're chasing you, the unsteady ground. You can immobilize them with shockwave to keep them off of you. So Earth is a pretty good place to go for damage mitigation if you need to mitigate damage before you even go into water or pop a cantrip. In general, when you're in a group, you want to avoid water except on regroups or when absolutely necessary to keep yourself alive. So try and go into Earth first to try and keep yourself alive before popping cantrips, using your heal, or using water. So we're going to backtrack to the beginning of the Arcana line now that we've went over that. The minor tick, grant Fury when you switch attunements. Fury increases your critical chance by 20%. So as you're swapping attunements, it'll keep giving you Fury, which will help do damage. So a lot of times if I'm an Ice Bow and I'm trying to DPS things down, I'll be constantly swapping attunements so that my Ice Bow does more damage. So I keep getting that Fury to increase my critical chance. Also switching to Might while you're an Ice Bow. Switching to Fire grants you a Might stack. So, swapping to an attunement, I usually wait before I go to use the 4 skill. I usually, make sure I can swap to an attunement first, get that Fury, so I do extra critical chance. So keep that in mind. Swapping between attunements is going to give you that extra critical chance. The next skill, this is pretty much a must for Staff Elementalist. 5, Blasting Staff. Area attacks with staff are larger. Especially with your static field. Remember I said anyone that touches your static field is going to get stunned if they don't have stability. So that'll help you stun additional people. It's also good for making your meteor shower bigger and all your AoEs bigger. So to make sure you can, hit as many people as possible. So that's pretty much a must-have skill for Staff Elementalists. The next minor tick in Arcana under Master. Attunement bonuses linger after leaving that attunement for 5 seconds. So what that is remember Soothing Mist on water? When you're in water and you get that Soothing Mist to heal you and your allies, different than the regen, and I switch to Fire, you can do that. You can watch. That Soothing Mist stays there for 5 seconds. So it's like you're in water and fire at the same time in the eyes of any skill that, relies upon those attunements. So likewise, if we skip ahead to the minor trait in Arcana, Arcane Precision, and if you look in Grandmaster minor trait, Arcane Precision skills have a chance to apply condition on critical hits. Well, if you're in, say, fire and water at the same time, because of that previous minor tick, you can apply burning and vulnerability at the same time. So it's not the most important thing in the world to know, but just know that you can get the benefits of 2 attunements for 5 seconds at the same time when you switch attunements because of that lingering elements minor trait. The very last thing in Arcana, Evasive Arcana is the best one you can use there. And when you're in combat, you have to actually be in combat. It won't happen when you're not in combat. A different skill will happen when you dodge roll based on your attunement. And I believe if you mouse 2 on top, if you're in the H to pull up the full menu, if you mouse 2 on top of your trait, it'll rotate through the 4 attunements because you can see what they all do. So in Fire, you do a Flame Blast, which does some damage. I don't recommend specifically dodge rolling to do damage with Flame Blast because the other skills are more powerful. So if we go to the Water Attunement one, heal yourself and nearby allies and also cure a condition. That is good for keeping yourself alive. You switch to Water Attunement and you're in combat. Let me get myself in combat. And I dodge roll. You see a little big block of water fly off of me. That'll help heal me. That's one good way to stay alive while you're in water, so you don't have to pop more important skills. And you can also use it to heal allies. So remember I said earlier, if there's people on rams on a gate and you need to heal them and you're out of your 2 water fields, you can dodge roll on top of someone to help apply some healing on them and remove a condition from yourself. So I would wait till you're in water or earth. Air's not bad either, but water and earth are the 2 most important ones for Evasive Arcana, and I'll talk about the other 2 in a second. The other thing to note is while you're in mist form, you can still dodge roll in mist form, and you can dodge roll in tornado. While you're transformed, you can dodge roll, so your evasive arcana will still happen. So if I'm in mist form and I'm in combat, and I dodge roll, as you saw, my water just splashed and healed myself. So while you're invulnerable, you can heal back up some of your health by dodge rolling in water. And this also works if you can't switch attunements from in downstate, but your LE downstate has vapor form, which is similar to mist form. And while you're up in vapor form, whatever attunement you happen to have been in, you can proc your evasive arcana by dodge rolling while you're standing up in your vapor form. You generally that won't come into play, but just something to note there. If you dodge roll while in combat on air, it'll blind, little flash of light, area blind. There's a cooldown on this, so usually, let's see what the cooldown is, 10 seconds. So if you dodge once and immediately dodge again, it won't hit a second time in the same attunement. But the cooldown is attunement specific. So if I dodge roll in air and do the blind and then swap to earth and dodge roll again, if I have energy to do so, then it'll do the evasive arcana in earth, because they have separate cooldowns. So the cool thing about the earth evasive arcana is it's a blast. So you can use that to self-blast fields. So, for example, you throw down a water field, and you need to keep yourself alive. You can throw down a water field, switch to earth, dodge roll through it to blast it. You throw down a fire field, you can dodge roll through it to blast it to get a stack of might. So that gives you an extra blast. It also, does damage, applies cripple and bleeding, which are good also, but its main purpose is a blast for you. So that is good. So, before I move on to something else, does anyone have any questions about the traits that I went over?
Are there any other good variations, or this is just like, you should just do
I
this?
highly recommend running 6/6. And then the 2 is what you can kind of move around. You can do 2 in earth or 2 in air are the 2 most common ones. One variation in water, the master major trait, the soothing disruption, which I prefer because it helps keep you alive. Some people choose Aquamancer's alacrity, which is 8. It reduces the recharge on all your water skills. Some people run that to make sure that their water fields are off cooldown for regroups. But if you're in an organized group, your commander usually knows what the water field cooldowns are and won't regroup until they're ready. And you might also have multiple staff elementalists, and you can get a rotation going with any of your fields, your static, your water fields. If you have multiple elementalists, you may want to coordinate who's using what when, so you don't, like, when you regroup, you only need 1 water field. We don't need 5 staff elementals to drop 5 water fields at the same spot. So you can communicate with the other staff elementals. On the first regroup, I'll drop the water field. Second one, I'll drop the water field. But you also have to keep track of when the other staff elementals die, so that you know. In general, if you're with a good commander or driver, he'll know when it's off cooldown. So you can, first one there is going to want to drop the water field to make sure it gets there as quickly as possible. And the last one coming in, dropping one doesn't necessarily hurt, because latecomers may be able to blast it and heal themselves if they miss the initial blast. So in general, I recommend just running Soothing Disruption because it helps keep you alive. And when you regroup, throw the water field down regardless, unless you're an extremely organized group and you can coordinate that well. The other thing with Soothing Disruption and Cleansing Water, the Grandmaster Major trait in water, you remove a condition from yourself anytime you apply regen to yourself or an ally. Your 5 skill on your staff in water, Healing Rain, applies regen twice to up to 5 targets. So you can hit 10 times you can apply regen to various allies. So that'll clear 10 conditions off of you. So if, say, these golems are our friends, and I throw my Healing Rain on our friends, and I call Big Water in case they want to blast it to get healed up, it's good for granting regen to them and healing them, but it also removes a crap load of conditions from you. So if you want to save your main heal skill and you happen to be in water, you can throw that on them to clear a bunch of conditions off you. So if you're being targeted by someone, and you happen to switch to water to keep yourself alive, resist the urge to throw Healing Rain on top of yourself if you have a bunch of conditions, because it'll be better off to throw it on your enemy group to clear those conditions off of you. And it helps your allies, so that's good all around. If you can't, if you're out of range or whatever, you can still throw it on yourself, but for Condi clears, it's more important to throw Healing Rain on your group, and always call it out if you throw a water field on your group mid-combat. In case their health is low, they'll know to specifically blast it. And the other thing is the oldest field wins, so if you call it the water field, they'll know not to throw another field on top of it so that people can blast it. Any more questions about the traits? I don't recommend running anything too much different than those. Now, one thing I will tell you, even roamers use the bottom two, the 6/6, because they're so powerful. But if you're running like dungeons, this is still fine for staying alive. But a lot of like PvE dungeon builds, like max out fire and air, so you do more damage. But if you max out fire and air in a world versus world build, you're going to have almost no survivability and you're going to die a lot. So I highly, highly recommend going 00266. That is the meta, as they say, that almost everybody's going to be using for its survivability benefits. So for sigils, I recommend having Bloodlust to get those extra power stacks. And then for the other one, there's a whole bunch of options. Superior Sigil of Battle and Superior Sigil of Strength will help give you some additional stacks of might to do additional damage. Superior Sigils of Fire, Superior Sigil of Air do additional damage when you critical hit, so those are also good. Energy is a good one because you're constantly swapping attunements. When you swap attunements, it counts as a weapon swap, so any weapon swap sigils or anything that procs on a weapon swap will count as you swap between the attunements. Almost every sigil, I'm pretty sure every sigil that's weapon swap has an internal cooldown of 9 seconds. So even if you swap real quickly in between them, you're not going to get that benefit, except for every 9 seconds. But a lot of people don't realize that swapping attunements counts as a weapon swap. Also what counts as a weapon swap is going out of mist form and coming back to your staff. When you come back out of mist form, that'll count as a weapon swap. And when you come back out of tornado, that'll also count as a weapon swap. So weapon swap sigils are actually pretty good on an Elementalist, even though they can't literally swap weapons, because you are probably swapping weapons more often than most classes. So Superior Sigil of Energy is good for that reason. Superior Sigil of Battle is good for that reason. Some people, I don't recommend this, but another option is either a Blight Sigil or a Doom Sigil to apply poison stacks, because the poison stacks will prevent downed enemies from healing quickly or from being bannered if their health gets too low if they have a poison stack. Because what an instant revive skill in Guild Wars 2, most people know it as being bannered. What it does is it gives you 100% of your downed health. So say your downed health is 2,000. A banner will grant you 2,000 health. Well, if you have a poison stack, it reduces that by, is it by a third, or is your healing effectiveness only 33%? So it can reduce that heal. Yeah, but is the 33% how much you heal, or 33% how much you reduced? I don't remember. But either way, if that reduction prevents the banner from fully getting your down health all the way up, you won't get bannered. So some people run in their groups those Doom and Blight sigils to prevent downs from being bannered in general. I personally think the extra direct damage is more important, so I would go with Battle, Strength, Fire, or Air are the sigils I recommend, other than Bloodlust. I recommend Bloodlust. If you're running a Bloodlust sigil, you have to have a matching underwater sigil, otherwise when you go underwater you'll lose your stacks. For runes, the best is the Strength runes. That's the best for damage because of the might uptime, and you'll constantly have might, so you get that extra plus 5% damage. Strength runes are some of the most expensive runes in the game, so some cheaper alternatives. Scholar runes are also quite expensive, but they're pretty good. Holbrack runes are expensive, but they're pretty good also. They're similar to the strength runes, but instead of the extra 5% damage while under might, you have a minus 20% condition duration on yourself, so it helps keep you alive a little bit. Some other good ones is anything that has power main is pretty good. Like Centaur, Citadel, Fire, Pack. I believe Speed might have power main. Those are all good. Some of them might be cheaper than others, but if you can't afford strength runes, you might want to look into those. One thing I would avoid is the Superior Rune of Vampirism. It's 6 skill, automatically turns you into Mist form when you go below 25% health. And the reason I'd say avoid that might sound like, oh great, Mist form, that's great, I love Mist form. But if you're in the middle of healing yourself, which you usually like to do when you get to low health, you'll be sitting here healing. So I'm at 50% health. I'm going to start healing, channeling. As soon as you hit 25% health, it cancels your heal. You go into mist form, you come back out, you don't have a heal anymore. So it can cancel important channels, which is why I recommend not using Superior Sigil or Superior Rune of Vampirism. But Strength Rune is what you want to work yourself to. Either Strength Rune or Holbrack are the two I would strive for. If you really, really suck and you're dying a lot, you can do something tanky like a Melandra Rune, but I don't recommend it because you want to be able to do damage. The thing with armor and runes in general for the Staff Ellie, you want to stay alive. So what I tell people is as tanky as needed to stay alive, but go as much damage as possible. If you get really good, you want to run full Zerk so that you can do the damage with your meteor showers and help your group out. But you're more important alive. You don't want to go full Zerk and be dying all the time, because your water fields to heal your group are awesome. All the CCs you have with your chills and your mobilize and your stuns and everything, those are very helpful to the group. So the most important thing I can say is stay alive. If you need to go full soldiers with Melandra runes to stay alive and benefit your group with the heals and the CCs, then by all means do that. But ultimately, you want to get to a point where you can do as much damage as possible, because that'll also help the group. A good middle ground would be like Soldier's Armor with Holbrack runes, and then like a mixture of Zerk trinkets. You know, you can throw in something else like a Knight or a Valkyrie with a little extra damage mitigation if you need to, if you're still having trouble. But I do recommend trying to do some damage. If it's your first time running Staff on an organized group, I do not recommend going full Zerk. It'll take a while to get used to playing. So does anyone have any questions about sigils, runes, armor, skills, staff skills, or traits before I move into combat-specific training? Alright, so combat-specific training. I'm pretty sure all, actually, if not almost all, of your skills on staff have a 1,200 range, which for the most part, there are some skills that can go longer. Like the ranger can trait to have a longer skill and whatnot. But in general, that's the maximum range you're going to see on 98+% of the skills in the game. So you can be maximum distance away and contribute on a Staff Ellie, which is one of the things that makes it powerful. The one exception I want to note is when you conjure a Frostbow, its skills are 900 range. So you have to get a little closer to use the Frostbow. But Staff Ellie, you want to be, as far away as you can for the most part. Because when you're far away, there's no chance. If I'm all the way back here, there's no chance these guys are going to want to come over and kill me. They're going to go for someone closer. And all the way back here, I can cast my skill. You can get really far away with a 1,200 range. If you're unaware, underneath your skills, like if you look at your fireball skill, it'll have a little red underline on it when you get too far away. So if you walk back here by the steps, you'll see a little red underline appear underneath your one skill in fire, and then you'll know you're too far away to attack your target. You have to have a target on for that to work. But in general, you want to be pretty far away. Makes you less of a target people don't want to attack. One tip for positioning is if you can get the high ground, always get the high ground. If this enemy army of golems is down there, you can walk up these steps and you can throw your AoEs from up here. They're not gonna hit you with their sword swings and hammer swings down on the ground if you're up here on this ledge. So if you're on a wall fight inside a keeper tower, a good place to jump is on top of a supply depot. Some towers and keeps have vista points where you can do a little mini jumping puzzle, and you can rain down hell from above from up there. If you're in a lord's room, a lot of lord's room have back areas. You can go way in the far back and throw your AoEs into the lord's room. And we can actually go in World vs. World, and I can show you some of these, some good spots to AoE from where you aren't, so much of a target. But the main thing with positioning is make yourself, not target people want to attack. You want to be where they most likely won't see you. So that'll take some practice to get used to, good positioning. One thing, if you start getting low health, you want to run towards your allies, not away from them. Because if you go down, you want them to be close to you to pick you up. And whenever the commander calls for a regroup, then you're going to want to start to close your distance a little bit so you're closer to the commander, so you can get to him quicker for your range. You don't have to get too close, though, because your water field can reach pretty far. If you're hitting the enemy group, you only have to go as close to the commander as he has to get away from the enemy group to drop your water field. But you kind of want to mirror his movement when he's calling for a regroup to drop your water field. Another thing with positioning, see if I can think of anything else with positioning. The main important thing is to constantly move as well. You can kind of use your peripheral vision to look for enemy gang squads and focus parties like thieves and mesmers and stuff, and let the other poor souls get picked off. If you see a thief over there, kind of to the right, you kind of move to the left while you're still casting your damage on the enemy group. And if you're moving, if someone's pursuing you and you don't know it, it'll put some distance between you. So it's a good thing to constantly move. You want to be scattered. You don't want to group up with other allies. You don't want to be standing next to another staff ally, because then if you guys get targeted, you're right next to each other and you're both going to die. You're better off keeping some distance between you and your other staff allies. Some organized group put all the staff allies in the same party, so you can see where the blue dots are, and you can spread out. The rule of thumb is in any engagement, you never want to be on tag. It's the opposite of frontline. Not never. You want to avoid being on tag when the tag is engaging another group, because that's where all the damage is. You want to be away from there. But when you're moving with the commander, you want to be right on his tag until the engage. And if you're dropping an early static, you can run ahead, drop the static, and then get away. You want to scatter. When an engagement happens, you find the safest place you can be to still drop your skills. Does anyone have any questions about positioning?
Well, I'm just curious about, choke points. I'm always played melee, so, this is all pretty new to me for positioning-wise. I've always heard, for choke points, if we gotta push through a group, you always, move with the tag, whether you're backline or not, right?
Not always on backline.
Kind of thing,
you push with the tag if you have no other better option. For example, if I can jump over to a supply depot and still AoE the same wall, I'm going to jump over the supply depot. If I can climb up a little mini jumping puzzle to a vista point or a cliffside and hit the wall, I'm going to do that. If I'm taking a fuckload of damage staying on tag up on the wall, I'm going to jump off the wall and AoE from the ground. Say you guys up on this wall are the enemies and I'm dying. Oh god, I got to stay alive. I'll drop off before there's too much fall damage to kill me. And I can sit down here. My AoE still hits you up there. If everybody's up there and I'm down here, I'm still hurting them. I can still drop water fields on the regroups. Your main purpose in backline is stay alive above all. At all costs, you stay alive. If that wall is too much pressure and staying on tag is going to kill you, you get the fuck out of there. Sometimes you can find a place on a wall to stand where you're not taking as much damage. Sometimes there might be a little offshoot, like a little bastion where the archers stand, and you can go there, and as they're evading across the wall, like in South Bay, you can imagine where the cannons sit. You can go off one of those little offshoots while they're evading back and forth on the wall, and you can stand there and drop your damage. So I wouldn't, first scenario, just jump off the wall and be away from your group. But if you have to, jump off the wall. The first thing I'd look for is something you can get to where the enemy ball is most likely not going to be, on top of a supply depot or one of those little offshoots. If you do have to be on the wall, if the enemy group is evading through your group and you're evading through their group, you'll know this because the commander or driver will say double evade through them, push through them, cleave through them. If they're doing that and there's no safe place for you to be, you want to follow him to the other side, because he's doing that to avoid
Yeah.
the enemy burst.
That's more what I was wondering.
Yeah, so if the enemy burst is incoming, you don't want to be standing where your commander was, because that's where they're coming. So you want to get the fuck out of there, whether it's to a supply depot or a little shootout, or evading through with him. You want to get the fuck out of there. But on the flip side, if the other group is playing passively and your driver commander says, leap onto him, get into him, fuck him up, drop all your damage here, you might want to stand where you initially were, because that's not where the enemy group is going, And as an Ellie, you always have the oh shit buttons of Mistform and Lightning Flash. You can Mistform through a whole group and take no damage. You can Lightning Flash across the wall and take no damage, as you teleport past the enemy blob. So the rule of thumb, would be is if you're engaging, it might be safe to stay where you're at. If you're avoiding a burst, it might be safe to stay on the tag and double evade with them. The other thing is if you're stuck on a wall or in a choke point, hang to the left or right. There might be a skill. I mean, my skills have blasting staffs, so they're pretty big. Or like, for example, like Shockwave. It goes in a straight line. Someone might have a skill like Shockwave, and if you're off to the edge and not in the middle of the choke, say we're in this choke, it won't hit you. You're safer off on the edge of the walls than you are in the middle. So if you're absolutely stuck, try and position yourself to the edge. And that's also good in case you need to jump out, you're also closer to the edge. I'd be careful. A lot of towers have lips along the edge that'll keep you in if you get knocked back or pushed back. If you jump up on top of one of those, you might be avoiding some damage, but you're at risk of getting knocked out. So just to forewarn you on hanging on the edge there. But that's the rule of thumb I'd give you for staying with the group versus not staying with the group, is try and avoid staying with the group unless you absolutely have to. Like, you don't... I should phrase it more this way. You want to avoid the enemy group more than you want to avoid your ally group. I mean, in general, when I'm roaming around on Staff Ellie or roaming around the balls engaging, the 2 melee balls, I'm focusing on my ally commander tag or target because I want to know where that guy's going for regroups. I don't want to be, so far away from that I can't get back in time to drop my water field, which helps keep my team alive. So I'm more focused on where he is, and I kind of use my peripheral vision to stay away from the enemy blob. But if you see an enemy blob burst coming, get the fuck out of there. If you have to double evade with your commander tag to do so, then do it. Wherever you can get to stay away from that burst is where you want to be. Stay alive at all costs. Above all else, stay alive. Because your water fields are more important than anything for keeping your group alive. And don't forget, like, if you do get too far out, if you are, like, if your commander goes the opposite way you're expecting, and you're between, the enemy ball is between you and your commander, you need to drop that water field. Water field above all else, Mistform through, blink through, use your fire evade in reverse, your burning retreat in reverse to gain ground, fire your greatsword to gain ground. You want to get back to your commander and drop that water field as soon as possible. Because usually when he's regrouping for water, his party, your melee ball's real low health and they need that water to stay alive. You are going to die if your 15-20 man melee ball all dies. Who they're coming after next? You. So you want to keep your friends alive because it'll help keep you alive. Plus, the bigger your melee train is, the more likely you're not going to get noticed skirting around the outside. So is there any other questions with positioning?
I guess, like, where you're dealing your damage, you want to just focus on the tag purely, or is it like...
If your commander or driver is doing a good job, the majority of the Staff Ellie skills are AoEs. You don't want to be dumping a bunch of AoEs like Meteor Shower on 1 or 2 people. If you go back and look at Meteor Shower, that does 24 impacts to do an AoE of 3 targets. You want that to hit as many people as possible.
Yeah,
so in general,
it's a lot of numbers.
yeah, your commander tag or your driver, if they're doing a good job, is going to position you on the best place to do damage. So if he engages, he says, and you can kind of tell the difference between an offensive maneuver and a defensive maneuver. If he says leap in, cleave through, stuns and lines, you know, something of that nature, CCs on them, then he's planning on holding them in place to do damage. Whenever you see that occur, that's when you want to start like channeling your meteor shower on top of that blob of people. If you're just moving around, if he's saying like circle around them or dodge through them, evade through them, move with me, you don't want to blow your, you know, your big cooldowns like your meteor shower, because the enemy blob's going to be moving as well. You want to wait until you see the two melee balls engaging and like kind of in one place before you pop those big cooldown AoEs. In general, as a staff Ellie, your AoE damage is so important to the group that you're going to focus on the enemy melee ball. Other classes, such as like Necromancer, when they drop their wells and marks, they might like weapon swap to another weapon and go focus people. But the staff Ellie's main purpose generally isn't to focus people. Your main role for damage is AoEs into the group.
So you're focusing like their front line kind of thing?
Yes, you want to focus their front line. But, yeah, and save your meteor shower specifically until you can get the majority of them. Because some commanders and drivers, they'll be like, I'm going to go attack their, you know, this little group of 3 people backlines because I know I can get them down and stomp them quickly. You might not want to throw your meteor shower on them, you know, because that has a high cooldown. But you can throw like Lava Font and Eruption, Ice Spike. You can throw that stuff on them. So I'll go over, if there's no more questions about positioning, I'll go over just some general rotation. So rotations, the first thing I like to do, you know, I'm using swiftness off cooldown, so I'll be in air when I go to engage the group. And if there's other staff fellows in your group, you might not want to throw your static at the same time, but I've always, you know, blinked ahead, thrown static. If it's not determined that that's not your role, assume it is your role. Blink ahead, throw a static, and then move out of the way for your group to engage. If your group isn't planning to engage, if they're planning to do a defensive maneuver, you might want to save your static. But in general, blink ahead, throw static. Actually, if you're new to staff, you might want to save your blink for defensive maneuvers to help keep you alive. But you can walk up and throw static and run away. But in general, you want to throw statics on them. And while you're in Earth, you can use your 2 skill to blind them. And then I like to switch immediately to Earth. Some people might like to save their unsteady ground for defensive maneuvers, but I like to throw that on them. Throw an extra CC in on them. Throw the shockwave on them. Get those CCs on them. Get them stuck. So that when you switch to fire to do your meteor shower, they're as stuck as you as a staff Ellie can make them stuck. You threw static field, you threw shockwave, you threw unsteady ground. They're pretty stuck. So then I throw down my 2 skill, the eruption, and immediately swap to fire and throw my fire field lava font on top of it. Both of those are good AoE damage, but it's also going to give another might stack to your allies fighting in the ball. And then I immediately start channeling my meteor shower. If they're still stuck, you know, it's situational, because that's going to do fuckloads of damage. And as soon as my meteor shower comes off cooldown, I do flame burst to do some AoE burning damage, and throw another lava font down, because it'll probably be off cooldown after your meteor shower's done channeling, to do some more damage. And you can just, you know, I leave my fireball and auto attack, so it does some auto attacks while I'm between skills. Remember when you're doing your meteor shower to keep burning your tree to mine, because it'll evade back away from them if you need to, because if you just dropped all your CCs, you might have been fairly close, and you might need that to gain some ground away from the enemy blob. You can also, sometimes, like if you're on a wall fight or something, I want to get to the other side, I'll burning retreat through them to throw some fire damage down on top of them with that turnaround skill we discussed. So after fire, air's probably off cooldown. I go back to air and, you know, use the lightning surge and gust if I'm not being targeted. Windborne speed if it's off cooldown to keep my swiftness up. And some commanders drivers may want you to save your static for when it's called for, or for regroups. But in general, if it's off cooldown and we're just hot and heavy, just doing whatever we can, I'll throw static fields, burn all of my my airs off cooldown. You can save Gust for situational use, but a lot of times I'll throw that into the enemy ball too, just to knock a few people around. And then by that time, Earth will be off cooldown, and it's most likely time for a regroup. So I get to Earth, and I'm planning on using my Eruption on the water field. So I'm in Earth, and I can, auto attack with the ball, use the Shockwave if it's off cooldown. And by this time, most likely it's time to regroup. So I'll throw down my Eruption at the projected regroup spot, swap to water, and throw the Geyser. Now, if it's not time to regroup, then I just use my Earth skills, go back to Fire, go back to Air, and I rotate between those three. Earth, Air, Fire. And you want to rotate frequently between those three because you're getting Fury from your traits. You're getting, Might and Swiftness and Protection from your traits. So it's beneficial to swap between those three frequently in your combat. You want to avoid water because you don't want your water attunement on cooldown when it's time for a regroup. If you absolutely must, you can switch to water to stay alive, but avoid water as much as possible because you want that on cooldown for the regroups. So after you throw your water field down on the regroup, everyone's re-empowered and getting ready to re-engage. What I like to do is prepare to throw my chill field down for the allied group to leap through to get that frost armor. If you weren't in Earth to throw Eruption underneath your Geyser, you can also consider preemptively throwing your chill on the enemy group to slow down their pursuit on the way back to throw the Geyser. Make sure you put the chill nowhere near where the commander or driver wants your water field, or you'll be getting area frost armor instead of area heal. So if I'm in water and we just threw our Geyser and we're going back in, sometimes if I'm the only staff Ellie, I might throw a healing rain if a lot of people didn't get the heal, so there's a second heal to be blast. But if you're the only staff Ellie, you may want to save the healing rain for an emergency water field. But if you're not the only staff Ellie, throw the chill where the commander's going to leap through. If there's multiple staff Ellies, the other staff Ellies can throw their chill into the enemy blob instead of where the commander's leaping. And then I like to throw an ice spike, just so I got some damage AoE while I'm here. And then I'll throw healing rain down on the in the ball of people if they're grouped up, and call out big water so they know to blast it. And then I go back to my rotation from before. I go to Earth, Air, Fire, and rotate between them, and wait for keep water off cooldown for when we do the regroup. Does anyone have any questions about the rotations? The one thing to remember about the rotations, other than save your water for regroups, is the Eruption is a blast. So anytime you throw an Eruption down, you're going to want to switch and probably throw most likely a fire field down. But if you're switching into water anyway, say you just threw your Eruption and he says, "All right, time for a regroup." You can throw into the enemy blob your chill field, which is an ice field, which to give area frost armor, or you can throw a big water to get some area healing as they're coming back for the regroup for another area healing. So anytime you throw that Eruption, you're going to be wanting to look to, throw a field on top of it. If you happen to throw an Eruption and you happen to, instead of going to fire, you accidentally go to air, you can throw a static field on top of it, and it'll blast area swiftness, which is good. Swiftness is good for keeping people mobile. So, and remember, you can lightning flash ahead if someone's out of range and you're channeling a skill such as Ice Bow 5. Other than that, does anyone have any questions about rotations? Does anyone have any questions in general?
Yeah, when you say chill, do you mean frozen ground?
Yeah, the frozen ground, if, are you in my party? Yeah, you're in my party.
Yeah.
Are you in my squad? You probably haven't seen the things I'm linking. If you hover over your frozen ground, it applies the chill condition to the enemies. So it's a soft CC. You can use it, to chill people to slow down their movement. But it also, if people leap through it, since it's combo field ice, if it's blasted or people leap through it, it will apply Frost Aura, which reduces damage on that person by 10% and chills enemies that attack them while they have the Frost Aura up. If you shoot projectiles through an ice field, then they pick up chill. So if you switch to your your Earth and you start throwing your rock through your frost field, it'll be a chilling ball. You know, it'll chill the person it hits in addition to applying that weakness. So projectiles through combo fields produces additional effects like burning and chilling and whatnot. Any other questions?
Regarding like skills and the rotations, could you go over that again? The staff skills, like the utilities, just like
Yeah,
surviving
the cantrips, your 7 through 9, you want to save for when necessary. They're situational based. Same with your elite is going to be situational based. So on the staff, we'll start from the beginning. Let me let all my attunements come off cooldown. So we can pretend we're a group going to engage that army of golems. Let me completely disengage so I can change some of my skills. Alright, I'm going to equip Frostbow and Tornado. So we have Swiftness going, Windborne speed off cooldown as we're running as a group. We're going, you know, we see the enemy. I decide I'm going to blink ahead, throw static on the group, and now I'm getting the fuck out of there, you know. And you want to be able to get good at moving to be able to, you know, rotate your view while rotating around the people. So, you know, with the Golem army and go break combat. If anyone has a scepter, once we break combat, equip that. The cool thing about scepter, say there's an arrow cart behind a gate, or an arrow cart that you can't hit with something else. It's in a weird spot and you can't hit with meteor stretch or whatever. You can break combat. You can equip a scepter and another offhand, either a dagger or a focus. And your Dragon Tooth, which is 2, I'll put it in a map chat here since I'm not suppressed. That will hit your target. It's not an AoE, it's target driven. It comes from the sky, so it won't be obstructed. Like your fireball on your 1 in staff will be obstructed if you try and attack someone through a wall, like through a gate. But this comes from the sky, so it won't be obstructed because there's no roof in the towers. So if there's someone sitting on an arrow cart, you can switch to Scepter, and make sure you equip an offhand so you get the extra damage, and target them, and just keep casting 2, and they will eventually get off that arrow cart to heal up, because you'll be doing decent damage to them. The disadvantage to doing this tactic is you get in combat, you're now stuck in this weapon set until you can break combat again. So I'll forewarn you on that. But that is an option. I recommend keeping a Scepter and an offhand weapon in your inventory for the purpose of using Dragon Tooth to target down people on siege and hard to reach places. If you have a dagger and you're in Lightning Attunement, the 4 skill, Ride the Lightning, is an excellent thing to gain ground. You can also, if you jump and you hit this in the air, your line of riding the lightning is at a different angle than your fall damage, so you can kind of get places. You can like jump and hit it, and it sends you a good distance through the air, so you can cover some gaps. You can leap between a gap that you normally wouldn't be able to by using Ride the Lightning, similar to a Guardian or Warrior leap on their sword, but you can jump in the air and then do it, so you can traverse some good gaps with that. But in general, I mean, this is staff LE training. You only want to swap to this for situational use if you're a staff LE. We can do dagger training and scepter focus training and other stuff another day. Is there any more questions? If not, we can head to World vs. World and I'll show you some cool lightning flash and tornado tricks and positioning tricks in various keeps and towers. Alright, that will be the end